Our next guy, Tony Pollard, he's got the Texans here, Lawrence.
Three jackholes talk about fantasy football on Happy Hour every day on Peacock.
They can do that for Sunday Night Football.
Right, there you go.
No, they don't
do that for Sunday Night Football. It'd be great. Can you imagine if Tirico had to do that? Poor Tirico had to be like,
He could throw that one aside. We wouldn't even be mad.
Exactly, yeah. A bunch of morons sit in a fake bar and talk about fake football. It's Happy Hour every single day on Peacock.
Tony Pollard here, Lawrence. Listen, we talked about yesterday our first bye-mageddon. A lot of great running backs in fantasy on the bye week here, where you're going to have to start some players that normally wouldn't make the cut. Tony Pollard, though, the volume's gone down. Tajay Spears in concussion protocol. This feels like a real toss-up for him.
It is a toss-up, especially when you got a guy who's finished outside the top 20 running backs in 4 out of his last 5 games. That's including 2 finishes outside the top 30. Hasn't scored a touchdown since week 6. By the way, just a couple of weeks ago, this Detroit Lions team, this Texans team was playing the Lions, and they held Jahmyr Gibbs to under 4 yards a carry, David Montgomery under 3 yards a carry. Even with Tajay Spears out, because Tajay Spears just came back.
Yeah.
He had a lot of these games. If I got guys like Bucky Irvin, maybe Rashad White, Tyrone Tracy there, even Ramondre Stevenson, I'm probably looking to close it out. Close, because he's still the running back 1 in Tennessee regardless. I think knowing, like, if Tajay Spears don't play, I'll probably keep it open, but if he does, I would close it out.
I'm going to keep it open. I get it. I just think it's with 6 teams on a bye, I just don't think he can be that choosy. He's my running back 23. There are reasons for concern, Lawrence. I totally get it. Like, he's had 3 games with fewer than 18 touches, and he's averages 7 fantasy points per game. Titans have the 3rd lowest implied team total in this game as well. So there's reasons for concern, especially if Tajay Spears clears the concussion protocol and is active in this game. But he left last week. He's currently in the concussion protocol. So there's a chance that he does not suit up for this game. And if he does, then, in the games in which he sees at least 18 touches, Tony Pollard's averaging 16 fantasy points per game. You'd think he would get 18 touches against the Texans, which is not, not a super scary run defense. They're, it's not great about middle of the pack. They're 13th. They're 13th over the last month. The Texans are in terms of run defense. And the other thing that at least keeps Tony Pollard's, fantasy light on, you can, that you hope for flex production here, is that he's had a double-digit target share in every game this season. The offense has seemed to be a little bit more productive under Will Levis since he came back.
Yeah,
they're moving the ball a little bit more, and so I have Pollard at 23. I think he's a low-end running back 2, mid-tier flex in a 12-team league. Again, given that there are 6 teams on a bye, I understand Lawrence's concern. I don't disagree with it necessarily, but I'm reluctantly keeping it open on Tony Pollard because I just don't think we got better options, and he should get at least some work in the passing game.
Our other running back here, Matthew, Austin Ekeler. He's been a really good check down option for the rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. He's had 3 straight games with 17-plus points. The problem is some of that's been without Brian Robinson. Can you continue to play him with Brian Robinson healthy now? Yeah,
and so I'm going to close it out on Austin Ekeler, who I love, as you know. Proud Fantasy Life investor Austin Ekeler, but to your point, 2 of the last 3 games in which he scored at least 17 fantasy points, to your point, Connor, Brian Robinson wasn't there. He should be back. Brian Robinson, we saw him against Philadelphia, so we know Brian Robinson is going to play against the Cowboys this week. The other thing is that the Commanders are 10.5-point favorites in this week. We're probably not going to have to throw much in a home game. We've had 10 days to prepare for a Cowboys team that's traveling on a short week to Washington. By the way, in games in which Brian Robinson is active, Austin Ekeler averages under 8 touches per game. So it's just not a big workload when you've got Brian Robinson healthy, especially in a game in which you're double-digit favorites.
Yeah,
Closing it out.
That 8 touches a game is kind of scary, but we're going to flip-flop on this one because I'm gonna reluctantly keep it open on Ekeler. This is why. I believe that short passing game to the running back is part of their running game, an extension of it. I think when Brian Robinson came back last week versus the Eagles, they played basically the same amount of snaps. Brian Robinson 53%, Ekeler 52%. Now that could be Brian Robinson getting back into the swing of things, but the Commanders was leading that game against the Eagles for much of that game into the 4th quarter. and Ekeler was able to get the 8 receptions for 89 yards. So I think versus the Cowboys, until they build that big lead, which I expect them to do that. I very much expect them to do that. I figured, he could get 4 or 5 catches in there. You see what he does with it. Dallas does allow 43 receiving yards per game to the running back. That's the 6th most in the NFL. So if you see where a defense is weak, you attack that. So I think he could have some value there. So not expecting another top 12 running back week like he had in PPR, but I would just leave it just slightly open. I would actually feel better about him than Tony Pollard, to be honest.
Tony Pollard versus Austin Ekeler this week? Little bet?
Yeah, I think this might be our first bet of the season.
All right.
We had a lot of Riddler bets, like
dinner.
Desmond Ritter bets.
Yeah, that's true.
That you forced me into.
I think you still owe me dinner. I think you still owe me a number of dinners.
Yeah, maybe.
For
Maybe
Desmond
but
Ritter bets. That's fine.
We'll go
double or
Ekeler.
nothing.
Yeah, double or nothing.
We'll
There you
go
go.
Ekeler
Yeah,
versus
you
Pollard.
have to buy me 2 dinners. Okay. Real quickly, just as long as we're talking Cowboys Commanders, Pro Football Talk just tweeting, Cowboys designating Brandon Cooks to return from IR. I'm bringing this up just so you can ignore it. Brandon Cooks was bad before he got injured. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be playing this week. He's just been designated to a return from IR. Cooper Rush and or Trey Lance under center. You want no part of this passing game if it's not CeeDee Lamb and maybe Jake Ferguson. We don't even know if Ferguson's going to play this week.
Jonathan Mingo Erasure over here.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like.
You're sleeping.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm just
2 targets last
I'm
week.
merely bringing it up just to dismiss
he
it.
did have
somebody
it.
will.
I
because
remember
he's
him
a-
having one.
Yeah.
Because he's a
One
big enough
was
name
kind
that
of
people will
throwaway.
ask.
Yeah.
So feel free to ignore Brandon Cooks just as you have for much of the year. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.